Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Coreco Couch. Now, as you can see, I am actually on the Coreco Couch this week. So we're coming up to the end of the year and we thought it would be a good idea to ask me some questions. And to do that, I have the wonderful Charlotte Fox.
Hello.
Hello, Charlotte. Welcome. You're not in the hot seat, you're in the question master seat today. And you have some questions to ask me.
I do indeed.
You do.
Are you ready for them?
I'm ready.
Fab,
Go
okay.
for it. I'm ready as I'll ever be. Anyway, it's quite nice sitting on the Coreco couch. I haven't sat on the couch before. It's much comfier than that chair.
It looks it, yes.
Yeah, it's really comfy.
Fab, okay.
All right.
We'll kick off with the first question
Go on
then. So we're coming to the end of 2024.
Yep.
How would you sum up the year?
Oh, now that is a question. So 2024 has been very interesting. So 2023, I'll go back and say that was a pretty horrific year, I think, in general for the mortgage market and for most people in financial services. 2024 was a lot better. So it started really well. I remember at the start of the year, we were all, yay, it's got busy. And there were lots of inquiries and lots of first-time buyers coming in. And then it sort of stopped. And then everyone got concerned about inflation yet again. And then we had the announcement of a general election. And then everyone was focused on the election. So we've actually had some pretty seismic events. We've had the UK election, we've had the US election, and we've had sort of the tail end of the inflationary crisis, which has eased, which is good. And then, of course, just as things were picking up again, we had the first budget from Rachel Reeves. And that in itself caused a whole range of new problems, which meant that because a lot of the measures, all the tax increases, they were considered pretty inflationary. So that meant that interest rates, or certainly swap rates, so the future cost of funds upon which lenders base their fixed rates on, increased. So actually lenders had to put up their mortgage rates, and that sort of stifled the market a bit. So we did think that actually the last quarter of the year would be really busy, and although October was really good, November just sort of started to peter out a little bit. So 2024 has been better, but still not quite where we want it to be. But there's a lot of optimism. The good news is there's a lot of optimism going into the new year now.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, yeah, as you say, we've had a lot of seismic events happen this year. Okay, so I guess my next question then would be, going into next year, what do you think is in store for the mortgage market?
Well, actually, speaking to a lot of the lenders, they're pretty bullish about the new year. So we don't know what's going to happen. So all of this there's an old economics term called ceteris paribus, which basically means is all other things being held equal.
Right.
So as long as we don't have yet another black swan event, then it looks as if we're entering, hopefully, a period that's a bit more stable. The Labour government are in. They've got a huge majority. They're not going anywhere for 4 or 5 years. They've started to get all their policies out. There's a lot of optimism in the house building sector. Builders are quite optimistic around what they're going to be able to do, which is good news.
Yeah.
And I think inflation, although people are still a bit concerned that it's sort of quite sticky, it's not quite hitting the 2% target, they do think that over the course of the year, that will still stay quite low. And there's room, therefore, for Bank of England base rate to cut rates over the course of the year. Now, going into the year, or just before the last quarter of this year, everyone thought there'd be another cut in December, and then there'd be 5, maybe 6 cuts next year. Because of everything that's happened, I don't think that's going to be the case now. So I don't think we're going to get a base rate cut in December. And I think we'll only probably see 3 or 4 cuts next year. So we've got Bank of England base rate of 4.75 at the moment. At the end of next year, I suspect it will be 3.75 to 4, which does allow mortgage rates to fall a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think mortgage rate wise, it'll be a little bit cheaper. And I think people are feeling a little bit, although it's still tough for people, I don't think people are feeling insecure in their jobs. So we're not seeing any signs that there'll be lots of job losses coming. And that's a real key component about when people feel secure in their jobs, they feel secure enough to buy houses. We've also got stamp duty change for first-time buyers.
Of course, yeah.
Which is coming in the end of March. So the first quarter of the year, I think a lot of people will try and get in before stamp duty changes. So I think first-time buyers are going to be pretty busy. And I think the mortgage market as a whole will be a lot busier than it was this year. So I think next year is going to be a good opportunity for people.
And with the stamp duty changes for first-time buyers, do you think that will have an effect on property prices?
Yeah, property prices has been robust. So for all those people who have said, oh, property prices are going to fall, they're going to crash 15, 20, 25%, there's still no evidence that that's going to happen at all. And even just today, as we're recording, we saw the nationwide house price index released, and that showed that house prices have increased. And that's even in the place we are now.
Mm-hmm.
So we do know that there's not enough supply of properties. The government's trying to address that, and demand is still there, and that demand is only going to get stronger. So I think house prices will continue to stay stable and grow, and I suspect next year we'll probably see house price growth of around about 3 to 4%.
Okay, and what about the buy-to-let market with all the changes that have happened, that are happening? What do you expect for those investors?
I think it's a really interesting time for landlords, and there's been lots of press about the death of the buy-to-let landlord. They're gone, they're exiting the market, and that's only there's some truth in that, but it depends whether you're an amateur landlord or a professional landlord. So a lot of the amateur landlords, I like to call them the dinner party buy-to-let landlords, they got onto the buy-to-let gravy train because everyone around the table was going, oh, you must get into buy-to-let, we've made loads of money. So I think all those types of people who hold properties in their personal names and were doing it for that sort of purpose, a lot of them have been put off, and they're the ones who seem to be selling at the moment. The canny investors who do it as a business have taken a lot of this in their stride, surprisingly. And they know that even the recent changes, that there's another 2% on stamp duty. So for stamp duty now, if you've got 2 or more properties, you'll be charged an extra 5%. Even that hasn't really curtailed professional landlords from looking at, do you know what? I still think there's an opportunity, because rents aren't going anywhere south anytime soon. There's still high demand for rental stock. And even some of the amateur landlords who are selling those types of properties, we're seeing anecdotally that they're actually being bought by professional landlords,
Yeah, I see.
rather than first-time buyers. So I think actually the buy-to-let market still has some strength in it, especially if you're a professional landlord, if you're buying in a limited company name, if you're doing it as a business and you're really getting your sums right. Of course, if you're working with a professional mortgage broker who can help, then I think there's some good opportunities for landlords, and a lot of the surveys from some of the more specialist landlord lenders are showing the same thing. So there is a degree of optimism there, actually.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I were a first-time buyer, I was looking, I have my deposit together now, and I'm looking to buy hopefully within the next 6 months. What would be your advice to me? Would it be do it sooner rather than later, or hold off until we're further into 2025?
Yeah, good question. I've am a massive believer of buying when the time is right for you as an individual. I mean, it's so difficult to play the market, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you look back at all the things that have happened over the last 5 years, really, there was a time when people were saying, "Oh, I'm just going to wait for this. I think things will get cheaper." And what's happened? Liz Truss budget comes along, or this budget comes along, and actually mortgage rates go up. So it's really hard to try to play that market. I do think that from now until the end of next year is going to be a decent time to buy, because I think that property prices, if you look over the next 5 years or so, are going to increase. So even if property prices increase by, say, 3% over the next 5 years, that's still a 15% growth over that 5-year period. So that's a big amount of growth. So it's all about trying to find the right property. And if you found the right property, doesn't matter when the time is, just get that property and make sure it's affordable for you. So if you've got the right property, it's affordable to you now and in the future. If you're worried about rate changes, then you can fix, which means you've got some security.
Yeah.
If you're more bullish about rate changes and you think interest rates can fall, maybe you can get a tracker rate if you're happy with that risk, and then you'll benefit from if things decrease. So there's never a right time to buy. There's never a wrong time to buy. I've bought twice. The last 2 times I bought, I thought I was buying at the top of the market and I was a bit worried. And both times, property values continue to increase. So buy when's right for you, not trying to play the market,
yeah.
or when your friend down the pub tells you to.
Do you hear that? Okay, cool. I remember hearing once, you said it's really important for us to have a strong rental market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? I don't understand that though. Like, why is that?
So, yeah, that's a really good question. And if you think about it, what I've always said, when a housing market is good, when it's healthy, you've always had 3 parts of the housing market doing well. So one is people who own their property. So when transactions are high, when there's a good amount of trading, selling and buying, that's healthy. The second part is the private rental market. And again, that's an area where if you've got a good supply of rental properties and therefore people can get into that rental market, they can move between rental homes without too much issue. Rents aren't skyrocketing. So when that's working well, that's healthy. And then also you've got social housing. So you've got the people who can afford to buy, the people who want to rent, and the people who need some help. And when those 3 sectors of the market work well together, you have a healthy housing market. And we haven't had that for decades now. We haven't had that for a long time because social housing has gone down and down and down. So therefore governments have need to put people who need help into the private rental sector, which has not only taken up stock, but it's also cost us as taxpayers a lot of money. And there just aren't enough properties around for people to buy or for people to rent, or social housing. So that's why we have a housing crisis at the moment. So basically, to answer your question, a good rental market is good for the economy because it allows people to move quite easily to where the jobs are. They can grow their families. Then if they want, they can save easier. They can go into private ownership. So it just makes for a healthier housing market and therefore a healthier economy as a whole.
Fine, that makes sense. Thanks for explaining that.
That's okay.
I just have one other question actually.
Yeah, go on.
So obviously
none of these are scripted, by the way.
No,
so
they're not. No.
I haven't got a clue what you're going to ask.
I don't know what I'm going to ask. And it might be stupid questions, but I don't know.
No.
So obviously we've waved goodbye to the Help to Buy scheme.
Yes.
Are there or do you foresee any other government schemes coming into place in 2025?
I think sort of yes and no. In the short term, do I think there's going to be another scheme like Help to Buy? I think the answer's no. I think this government is really concentrating on the supply of housing and getting builders building again and making planning laws easier for builders to build. The problem with something like Help to Buy is it's demand sided, so it creates loads of demand, which just pushes up prices.
Yeah, I see.
And this is all about, I think this government is focused on, rightly, finally, on long-term supply of properties. So you might see some skirting around the edges. You've got a mortgage guarantee scheme, which sort of helps. You might see some other little schemes come out. But at the moment, I don't think we'll see another Help to Buy scheme as such. I think there'll be more onus on some private schemes. So you've got schemes like Own New, which is something that lenders and builders have created together, which enables builders to give a cashback to the borrower, which they can use to give to the mortgage lender to reduce their mortgage payments. So I think you'll see more private schemes like that.
Okay, Monty, thank you very much for answering my questions, sitting on the couch, allow me to sit in your chair. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for tuning in and watching this special episode of the Coreco Couch. It just remains for me and Charlotte and all of us at Coreco to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you do over this holiday period. I hope it's fun. You get some time off to relax. I wish you a very, very happy new year. May it be healthy, prosperous, and fun. And we'll see you in 2025.